Good morning, everybody. This is the first day in a long time we're on time, and we will appreciate that.
Hey, now.
So I'll call the meeting to order. We'll have roll call.
Allen. Juby,
Be here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Williams,
Williams present.
Roth,
Roth here.
Kenyon,
Here. Nobody's asked for remote attendance that I know. So we need a unanimous consent for the approval of the minutes.
Leonard moves.
Is there any objection? The minutes stand approved. Do we have any public comment? We see none. I understand our Northern Illinois Food Bank people have a conflict, but I hear on the radio that they helped gather up. How much food was it, Matt?
I believe it was 25,000 pounds.
And they sent it
For
to
Hawaii?
Maui
Wow.
for the reef. I
Very
think that's
cool.
pretty quick.
Very cool.
They stand in, and they, special donations. They didn't take away from their louder. Growing for Cane, Matt, do you want to talk?
Yes, thank you. And I'll let Blair pull up my slides. Today, I wanted to give an update on the Urban Agriculture Innovative Production Grant Program. You'll recall this is the USDA funded effort to provide training and additional technical resources for farmers in the county. And just to kind of recap the three focus areas of this. So the first part, the main focus is really providing training that meets the needs of farmers in Kane County. And we did do a little bit of outreach recently that I'm going to get into that kind of summarizes what type of format, what types of topics would be of most benefit to them. So that training and that technical assistance piece is really kind of the anchor of this program, really focused on helping farms, increase their sales and just help them achieve their business goals in general. And then the next most important piece of this is to continue to strengthen those pathways between local food production and the communities that have been identified as low income, low access communities. I've talked about these before. These are a couple of areas in the county that have a combination of low income census tracts with limited access to grocery stores, just lower density of grocery stores in those communities. So an important piece of this is going to be helping to build connections to those communities, and that could be through increasing the use of SNAP systems, supplemental nutrition assistance systems. At farmers markets and other areas where local product can be purchased. And then the last piece of this that was a part of our proposal is to support the agriculture technology companies that do work with local food producers. We do have a few of those in the county. So that's going to be another area where, if it makes sense within the scope of this, we're going to try to channel some of the benefits of this grant to support some of those entities as well. I'm not sure if there we go. So this slide just basically summarizes what I just went over, those three groups of the proposal that we're getting into. And so now I just wanted to spend a little time going over the feedback that we have gathered in a quick survey of farmers to kind of get a sense of, what type of program structure for this training project would be beneficial to them. So all the responses that we received were from farmers that operate in Kane County, and 86% of those sell their product to consumers in Kane County. But the most important thing that we wanted to learn about is the types of topics and training subjects that would be of most interest to them. So these are topics that we would want the eventual training service provider to incorporate into whatever curriculum or training resources they're providing to our farmers. And so the top topic far and away was sales and marketing. And this is actually pretty consistent with what we've seen in some of our previous survey responses from farmers. We did a survey back in 2021 in conjunction with the Regenerative Grazing Field Day. This was a field day that was hosted over at Allgrass Farms at the Brunner Forest Preserve, led by Cliff McConville. And the top two topics that farmers wanted assistance and additional resources related to was sales and marketing and business plan development. So that continues to be a pretty important topic for farmers. And then the other topics, also were pretty significant as well, with as far as agritourism, farm labor and staffing, and sustainable farming methods. And then moving on, these were some other topics that were of interest among some of the farmers, but weren't in as high demand. So these topics might not be as high of a priority when it comes to the training and curriculum topics that are developed. But we're still going to give them some consideration. And then the last slide just shows a few that were kind of on the low end as far as interest. So if a vendor, if a training vendor does want to address these, that's fine. But I don't think we'd provide any additional, push or urgency behind getting these topics addressed in a training program. And then lastly, we did want to get some feedback as to what format would be most beneficial to farmers in terms of how they want to receive, training, how they want to receive information. And by and far, most expressed interest in a virtual class format. So I think that, most of us have gotten pretty comfortable and familiar with, participating in activities virtually these days, and that would apply to farmers as well. So we'll make sure that that's, a capability of whatever training service provider we work with. And then there was a share that we're open to a variety of different formats and could be kind of flexible as far as how that goes. But if you did express that, that the classes should kind of work with their scheduling, so kind of avoiding the growing season, and for farmers that do have, other jobs that, that late day classes would be easier for them to participate in. So we'll be mindful of that when the training resources are put together. And that is all I have. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Man, I've got a question for you, and this is kind of off topic, but I've been, I know very little about farming and agriculture. I'm trying to learn. And as I'm reading things, one of the things that concerns me is, I think at one of these meetings recently, Steve had mentioned that about 97% of all farms are privately owned, which I was very pleased to hear. In reading some articles in the Wall Street Journal, a few other areas, they said that the corporate farms or many private farms are being sold to corporations. Could be Chinese based, could be American based, I don't know. But I was wondering if you have any idea, any of you, on what percentage of the farmland is corporately owned versus privately owned?
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, many of the family-owned farms do have organized LLCs to own that. So you could consider that a corporate entity. So I guess it depends on
And
how
I
you're.
didn't even put that into it. I
Right.
understand the LLCs, and I have no problem with that. I guess I'm more concerned with the large commercial corporate entities.
Right. And we do recognize that there are, that there is a percentage of farms that are owned by, larger companies. I don't have I guess a number as far as what that is right now, but it's, it is something that we could look into.
Yeah, I would just like to get a little better idea. I was reading specifically about hog farms in Iowa and one other state, and they're about 80% owned now by large corporations. And so I thought that kind of concerns me about the privately owned farmers in this area or any other area in the US. So that's why I asked the question, but yeah, there's no rush. Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, if I had to speculate, we've done some mapping on egg assessed farmland that is in the unincorporated area versus the incorporated area. So I would venture a guess that the majority of our corporate or non-farm family owned farmland in Kane County is probably owned by developers who have purchased land speculatively. Some of them still from back when they were annexed back pre-2008. They're still being farmed. They're not owned by a corporation. It's buying up farmland like maybe out further west, but they're not owned by a farm family. They're being farmed. We have a couple of categories of farm operators. Those who own land and farm, those who own land and don't farm, and then we have those who don't own land and farm other people's land. So it's a quite a mix of business models.
Right.
With the hogs, there's, let's say like a cooperative. They belong to like the Mashoff Cooperative. You own your farm and you build a hog facility and to their specifications. And you sell your hogs to them. They maybe bring you the babies too. And they take you through it, but so it takes risk away from you. It gives you return. But it's not your typical corporation. It's a farm corporation. And incidentally, the hogs are having a hard time now. They're not making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And
Prices drop
well,
drastically.
you would think so in the grocery store, but I remember when I first went on the Farm Bureau, it was in 2000. They were $9 a hundred.
That means 100 pounds? Not
Yes.
pounds, okay. And what is it
$9
now?
a hundred. It was a while to grow out of that. Now they're 50 or 60 and they still don't make money because corn costs too much.
Right, sure.
By the way, this corn this morning on the market was less than $5. What does that mean? Well, last year it was 6. So that there'll be quite a
15%.
struggle. And by the way,
God bless
they want to limit the foreign ownership. I think one of the largest owners is the country of Ireland.
Really?
And some countries want to own land so they guarantee they get the product that they want. They get control. That would be like Japanese with soybeans and things like that. It's we're not very trusting, anymore.
Well, that's okay. Well, thank you. I'm sorry I went off topic. but
that's-
Thank you all
that's
for
fine.
your answers. I appreciate it.
Right now, it's the beginning of the Farm Bill negotiation, and it's gonna be not on time. It's negotiation, it's a 5-year bill, and 85% of the money doesn't go to agriculture, it goes to food supplement programs. And myself, I don't believe anybody should go hungry, and I don't mind government supporting people to get food, and that's what they do. But
Good.
some of those darn Republicans are making it a little hard. But they won't, you can't pass a farm bill without the city boys. We don't have enough farmers in the Congress. So you gotta be nice to the city boys who want to get something done.
Thank you.
Are you done or are we gonna have Janice?
I'm done.
Is Janice gonna do
I'm
that?
here. Yeah, hello, everybody.
Well,
I'm
when you're not-
here.
We don't know Janice.
I am here. I don't know, my video should come up in a minute. I don't know if you're seeing it or not, but
Yep, we see it, Janice.
okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I echo everything that Mike Kenyon and Mark and everyone was saying about from what I've seen with the farms in Kane County. But remember too, our farmland is very fragmented in terms of ownership and size of parcel. So it's not really desirable to outside interest for farming. Yeah, just because of that fragmentation too. And as Mark said, if any non-farmer is owning land these days, chances are good it's for speculative development purposes. That's what we've really seen. So thank you, everybody. I am going to give you a bit of a grant update, and then maybe if Matt can help with my slides, I just have like a few and we could move on to the next one. If you have that clicker, Matt. Thank you. So last month, you may remember that we talked a bit about the Farm Bill, and as Mike Kenyon just said, that's running behind and not likely to get approved in time. But in the meantime, we do have other funding that is out there, and I think I presented this topic last month as well, and this is the Inflation Reduction Act, and it authorizes funding in all different sectors, but the one that we're most interested in for this purpose has to do with agriculture and the relationship to climate, particularly sequestering carbon. So they have set aside quite a bit of money, and then this funding cycle runs all the way to 2031. Now, will that funding be available nationwide through those years? I don't know. It seems to me that usually USDA NRCS funding is first come, first serve, and when it's gone, it's gone. But they have set aside a significant amount of money for the category that we call ASAP-ALE, and that's the program that we participate in. That's the Agriculture Conservation Easement Program. That's the ASAP acronym. And then the ALE is the Agriculture Land Easements. And that's the funding that we get from the federal government to match and reimburse the funds that we use for our agriculture easements. And so they are recognizing that, of course, what we know is that when land is permanently protected, right away we're avoiding greenhouse gases and capturing carbon right in one fell swoop because of that commitment for permanent easement. And the permanence, of course, creates a situation with the easement that is like no other location when it comes to agriculture. And then if you start adding conservation practices on top of that, then we really have some benefit of the farmer landowner going above and beyond to capture more carbon. Now, there have been a lot of different measurements to that. There's the private marketplace for that, and now the government marketplace, but nonetheless, the importance of avoiding greenhouse gases and capturing carbon and reducing those greenhouse gases, we know that easements work for that. So they've set aside quite a bit of money. Next slide. And you may remember I said, I have no idea when they're going to announce this. Well, I think it was the day after Ag Committee, the last meeting, I asked our state, now that's not state of Illinois, that's our state NRCS office, if they've applied for funding for Illinois purposes. And you know, we're the only county-based program, so typically we're the greatest user, right, for some of the programs. And so they said, well, for last year we weren't eligible but for next year, meaning 24, if you have a proposal for funding, bring it in. You have 1 week. So we put our heads together, and I work very closely with Ann Wilford and Water Resources, and in continuing conversations that Mark and Matt and I have all the time about funding and projects and the relationships, we came up with a proposal, and you can see the overall amount that's going to be nationwide available for easements and the EQIP program, which EQIP is an acronym for the conservation practices, and that's direct to farmer funding. And so I just went ahead and, after working with everyone, came up with a proposal and submitted it. So I asked for $600,000 for EQIP. Now, EQIP is not administered out of our office typically. That would be the local district NRCS office. But if we don't stand up and ask for that money for specific to our county, I don't think anybody else would have. So knowing that we have Matt's livestock assessment project that has been going through, we're going to have a much clearer idea about what our 20 or so livestock producers need to stay in business, because, we lost our largest livestock producer. And soil health, which we've been working on, countywide, would be wonderful to have more money for farmers to be able to improve their soil health and all of the on-farm practices. Then I also requested $800,000 for ALE funds, which are the actual land easements. And then this is the most important thing, $900,000 in technical assistance. We do not have the capacity to do this program at all right now with Matt and I and the rest of the team. We are already way overextended with all of our projects. They're all successful, but we can't do this. So we need to be able to contract services, to be able to bring in experts, could be even out of state, to work with our landowners. And the same goes for the local Southern Water District office and the local NRCS office. Their staffing is at its limits as well. And the other thing that's concerning is the actual pipeline for these professionals, the young people coming out of school, how their qualifications and how they reach these jobs. That's a big question mark that hasn't been really worked on statewide. But nonetheless, we know that we would need that money in order to be able to do these things. And the other thing I requested, which is a little bit different, that we often talk about the 50-50 match, but I proposed an 80-20 match, 80% federal, 20% local match. I found nothing in the regulations that prohibited that. And so I thought, well, let's go for that. Sometimes I've seen 80-20 option for historically underserved farmers. So I didn't just make up that percentage. I have seen NRCS use that before. So I thought, since this is a very innovative program, it's building on work that we've already done and we've already invested in, that we would be a good model if they funded us for our neighbors around the state and possibly nationally for doing this. So that was how now when I submitted the proposal, I found out there were a couple other proposals statewide, but when you see the amount of money that's available nationally, our request is rather small. And I also proposed this for a 3-year time period. Okay, next slide. One of the, because this project really wanted some focus areas in particular, the evaluation would rank higher if it had focused areas. So I specifically recommended a portion for the agriculture easements, hopefully to be focused in our portion, King County's portion of the Kishwaukee watershed in Virgil area. Now, this is always voluntary, so we have to, this only works if farmers would like to participate, and that's a very big decision for a family, but we have already had a few easements up in that area and more interest. So with funding available, I think that we could see some easements up there, but it would take some outreach and things like that, and a lot of communication and education. The EQIP and conservation tools would be for the livestock farms countywide. And of course, that just builds on Matt's program and would then create almost like a natural next step for those farmers that he's in contact right now. And then the soil health and water quality farm plans, that's something we've been working on with our Donnelly grant, and how to get farmers when they come in to start with a very basic assessment of where they are today with their soil health and how is the water quality, at their farm and around the perimeter of their farm, so that we can or nearby if there's a creek, so that we can determine whether or not, how best to help them with their conservation practices. Okay, next slide. And so when we talk about, what are those conservation practices? These are the ones that the federal government recognize, that are best for reducing carbon and that are called climate smart. So we've got our greenhouse gas avoidance, which we're already doing with our protected farms. Since that land is protected, we know we're already avoiding the greenhouse gases from the automobiles and the pavement and everything that would be created from a subdivision. But also cover crops, tillage practices, crop rotation and variety, and then the healthy soils. Those are the 4 things in the Midwest that make the biggest difference for on-farm practices. And through our other programs as well, we'll be working a little bit more in education, side by side with our Soil and Water Conservation District, our Water Resources Department, and the NRCS District. But of course, all of that takes funding, and that's how I specified these in particular that would be most appropriate. Now, every farm is different. It's not like there would be a blanket, you must do these things. That's where that baseline study comes in. Some farmers are already doing all of these things. Some are not doing any. It really doesn't matter for participation wherever they are at that point. If they're interested in moving forward, then the funding would be there for them. Okay, next slide. And so here you have kind of a summary of the request. Now, I do have this 20% local match is a little bit deceiving because it's not all cash match. I should have really called it contribution. We already have funding that the board has contributed to overall education through, for example, the Donnelly grant that we're working with, the American Farmland Trust. I'm considering that as contribution to the overall project. But when it comes down to the actual easements, we would need that 20% match. So that would be $200,000. Now, in trying to determine what funding is eligible and meets that 20%, it appears that ARPA money could be a possibility when it's above and beyond the required 50% match that we typically do for easements. So maybe $1,500 per acre per farm, and then anything above and beyond that would be, we could use ARPA money. So that's a possibility. I think it would be a great use of that. We typically do use riverboat money, so we might need some additional money for that. And then finally, there's always private investment. So this is to give you the big picture of what we've submitted for. When I ask, well, how long will it take? Do we know? No answer. Our state office has never evaluated anything like this before. This is new funding, and they're learning along the way. But I'm hoping we can be prepared with a local match in at least designated. So if that funding should come through in 24 for Kane County, we would be ready to go. Does anyone have any questions?
We don't see any.
It sounds very encouraging though, Janice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, we're real happy. We're happy to be first in line.
Oh, and the dog's happy too.
What?
And the dog's happy too. He's barking.
The dog's happy too, okay. No farms, no food.
Oh yeah, I've heard, this is a really important slide. Sorry, you may hear the pup in the background whining just from the storms. I'm pet sitting for my sister. But anyway, this invitation, this is a heads up for a presentation, a save the date for our county board, our staff, and the Farm Bureau board. There will be formal invitations that go out, but the American Farmland Trust has been a great partner of ours. In fact, they were the ones who helped us get our program started. I think they were hired by the county board in 2000 to produce 2 reports, which I have to try to find because that was before things were online. But yes, they came in and did a lot of roundtables and a couple white papers and talked to us about programs around the country. And we've been great partners since with various programs and funding packages. They are bringing their national board to Illinois in September. Their board typically travels around the country. They're from across the country, and they come together for their annual meetings and to discuss all of the projects that they're involved in. They're very, very involved with the Farm Bill and all the other legislation and policy work that we all rely on in this area. And so anyway, they are coming out here in September, and we are going to, Steve Rue, one of our farmers in Big Rock, and his family has been very involved with our farmland protection program. Steve is going to host us at his barn in the afternoon when they have a visit. And then afterwards, and I'll make a presentation to them about partnership and all the things we've done and our easement program. And then they'll drive around some of the farm fields and the scenic views through Big Rock and Caneville, and then head back to Oak Brook. And then in the evening at the Drake Hotel, and this is to save the date for that invitation, they would love to have the boards, both the Farm Bureau board and the county board, as well as the staff, attend this event to hear more about their plans for the future. I'm sure they will have some discussions about Farm Bill, but they really wanted to have a nice interactive event. They also will be visiting some other farms in Illinois, including Kankakee and some other locations. So anyway, you'll be getting a formal invitation in the mail, and if you have any questions about that, give me a call or send an email.
Any questions?
Anything else?
Notice the word dinner there.
Yes, exactly. I think it'll be a very nice event. And I'm really glad my presentation now is during the day so I can relax and just enjoy and have dinner with everyone and
Yes.
not have to be stressed about the presentation. But I'm really excited to showcase our program and all the board's decisions and investments and everything that you've done over the years. And I don't know if any of you remember too, Kane County hosted their one of their annual, wasn't a board meeting, it was actually like an annual conference, and we had people from the Midwest come out here and tour some of our early easements, and it was quite an event. And I still hear about it from other people from around the Midwest, their visit here. So
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, Strathman here.
Good trying.
Cheryl's got a question.
Good morning, everybody. Before Janice goes away, I just want to thank her for arranging the King County Farms Tour. I was lucky enough to be on it on Tuesday, and it was, I know it took a lot of work to arrange all that, but it was such a valuable, I learned a lot. It was beautiful, and thank you for the beautiful weather as well, Janice. But it was just a great day, and I learned a lot more about our wonderful county, and it was great. I can't say enough good things about it, and I hope that it's offered again next year for the board members. Thank you, Janice, very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And it was wonderful to have you there. And we had a great mix of neighbors from surrounding counties. We also in Chicago, and we also had a lot of people, conservation-minded people, farmers on the tour. That was in partnership with the Chicago Wilderness Agriculture Committee, which is a large a nonprofit that covers a very large geography, multi-state geography. And so it was really nice to highlight, everything that we've done and what it looks like on the field instead of just talking about it on paper. I will say that if we ever do another tour, and we had a waiting list, so there's some merit to doing that, that would be a county-specific event, because next year Chicago Wilderness is going to Northwest Indiana, which I think also would be a really good tour to go see what they're doing there. Thank you.
And Janice, this is Bill Roth. I would second it. It was a very well run, very informative. So thank you.
No,
Thank you. And I know that Matt too has those brochures out, and there's a lot of information there too. You can take your time kind of going through that, and we can look at that over time as well.
Mr. Vanther and Skirkoff.
Well, two things I wanted to also thank the board members who attended the farm tour, but also Janice and Matt. They just continue to shine in their work, and the warmth and the informative way they go about what they do. I was able to join in the afternoon after our long development committee meeting, but just to see, how people are received and treated and questions answered. Just really appreciate the two of them and everyone who partnered on the tour. The other thing I wanted to do is just give an update on staffing. Janice mentioned that we have a lot of good work going. We have a lot of grants that we have received that we continue to go after, like the one Janice just mentioned. And on just from a staffing update standpoint, at the end of 2022, we had two of our staff members leave, one for retirement and one moved on to work for one of our municipalities. I've been working with HR since early this year to revise those job descriptions to fit what we actually need for the future. A little less GIS emphasis, more on farmland protection and growing for cane emphasis. So been working on those. And then as some of you may know, we have a little bit different budget process happening this year. So step one was our 2023 budget. Anything we want to ask, request over and above that is going to be in a supplemental budget request. The thing that is a little bit different on the personnel side is that only the filled positions are being rolled over into the step one base budget request. So these two vacant positions, which we've had in our department and are crucial, especially for our ag programs, are not in the base budget, and they're going to be part of a supplemental request. So I'm pointing out that while these might look like new positions, they're positions that have existed, have been crucial, weren't filled under revised job descriptions prior to the budget process. So it's a heads up that it's coming, and more details next month when we do our budget presentations, but would appreciate your support for getting these positions filled. They'll primarily be out of the farmland protection and other non-general fund sources. So and happy to answer any questions on that, but thank you for letting me give you a bit of a heads up and appeal.
I want to put you on the spot. How about we were working on some ordinances, rural chickens. How's that coming?
Yes, we are still evaluating what kind of text amendments would be best to fit. There's a lot of great information out there on limiting numbers of chickens per lot size and that kind of thing. And we want to try to, because we have such a wide variety of lot sizes in our and estate zonings, have it be somewhat proportional to that, somewhat like we did with our beekeeping ordinance. But we also don't want to make it too complicated that people can't figure out what they can and can't have. So we're trying to come to a middle ground on that.
Don't forget the noise ordinance and the shooting ordinance.
I can't forget them, no.
Mr. Chairman Bates, please.
Please speak, please, Mavis.
Okay, thank you. I have gotten one phone call from a farmer who is interested in putting solar on his land and is trying to figure out how to do that. I did connect him with somebody else who might be able to help him, but are we helping our farmers to connect to solar developers? He said it was about the only way that he could save his family farm would be through the income from a solar field on part of his acres.
So to answer your question, no, we are not directly working to help connect farmers with solar developers. The solar development field has been very active in Kane County. We have, I think, 4 new petitions that are going to be coming through in the very near future. One of the recent petitions that was passed was based on that premise, they were going to use the funds to help support and maintain the family farmstead. So there's a variety of reasons why folks may do that. But we have had a lot of interest. They seem to be getting connected on their own. There's a number of different solar development companies out there. And typically the county's not in the position to steer people to one or the other.
Mr. Roth?
Roth here. Hey, Mavis, shouldn't the energy also help on that? You know, kind
Sure.
of a combination.
Yeah, I can do that. We can help.
Okay. Because, you know, if it's going to save some farms, I definitely think we
Mhm.
should try to help all we can.
Mhm.
Sure. And what we are happy to do as a staff is if someone's interested in knowing if their property might be a good candidate for a special use for a solar facility, we're happy to talk to them and about that before they approach solar developers. But typically it's been the solar developers who have been approaching us with land that they've already had discussions with the landowner about.
My experience with that
Is that
is,
Mark Van Kerkhoff speaking?
Yes, that was Mark Van Kerkhoff. Thank you.
my experience with that, it's all driven by the ability to connect to the grid, the
Absolutely.
capacity of the lines. So these solar developers are out there identifying properties that could possibly work. Unfortunately, there's a fair number that would not work because of the transmission issues, but you know, that's why they're getting
On our own
contacted.
farm, we had applied 3 places and only one of them was able to work. Now they're coming back. Commonwealth Edison is the problem.
Yeah.
Now the other one is they're coming back and gonna go ahead. There's one in Genoa and maybe the other one on Plank Road. But Illinois was late to the game. And in other states, we have smaller solar farms. Now they're getting bigger ones.
Right, right. And I think the other thing we need to do too is educating people, because there's a lot of false rumors going around. You know, the big term I hear a lot now lately is, you know, solar's a scam. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but we got to get the facts.
People don't like to look at them.
Yeah, well, that doesn't make it a scam.
We put up bushes and berms.
Yeah.
Just like with everybody else.
Right.
Is there anything else we'd like to talk about?
Solar is not a scam. Thank you.
I agree, Mavis. We just got to get better at educating people, right?
Okay, well, let's put that on the energy and environmental docket then.
And-
Bill, you and I can talk. Thank you.
We don't have anything else to talk about. We'll want to put the reports on file. Mr. Leonard,
Leonard so moves to put the reports on
Roth
file.
will second it.
We can do a voice vote.
we can
Voice vote.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. No executive session, no public comment.
And I'll make motion to adjourn.
Off the move.
Tim seconds.
All in favor, say aye.